You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. Hi, y'all. I'm Joanna Newting, joined today by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal. Welcome to the show.
Hello, sister.
Hello. Excited about our guest today, Stephanie Scherzer. She is the founder of Farmhouse Delivery. And Stephanie has spent 2 decades focused on building and supporting local food systems. She founded Farmhouse Delivery in 2009 to connect consumers with sustainably raised local food while expanding market access for regional producers. Under her leadership, the company has partnered with over 250 Texas farmers and reinvested approximately $20 million into the local food economy. Yay. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for joining the Soil Sisters podcast.
Welcome, Stephanie. I'm so happy you are. I signed up this morning, have been shopping literally off and on all day.
Awesome.
It's super exciting.
Oh, good. I'm excited for you to try it. It's definitely a unique product, I'd say.
And absolutely needed, truly needed. People,
Yes.
This is,
100%.
you don't have to go look. You don't have to go look. You don't have the time. You're busy. We know. Here, shop on the website like you do everything else. This is easy, and it's grown regeneratively locally. So anyway, most of it, yeah. Very exciting.
Yeah. I think that was the thing. I started growing my own food. I've been, had my hands in the soil for many, many years, but hadn't grown my own garden. And once I tasted the difference, and I felt this desire of wanting to share it with my community. And I couldn't believe that I could buy bananas from South America easier than I could get a carrot grown in Austin or even in Texas.
Yeah.
So, I realized that is where the issue lied, was in distribution. And that's where I kind of got started. And luckily I was over at East Austin next to Boggy Creek Farm. Larry and Carol Ann were dear friends and kind of mentors to me. And then Springdale Farm at the time, and then Hossbar Farms, which was the East Side Cafe when they started on the east side. So there were 4 urban farms that really helped me. We all came together and helped each other and got me started in growing food.
Your background involves one of Crystal's favorite humans, and I'd love to hear how you got connected with John Dromgoole and the Natural Gardener, which, of course, that would inspire anyone to grow big or go home.
That's right. What a place, huh? I grew up in Dallas, Texas. My father, the version of what I saw with food grown was in the alley. He had one tomato plant next to the garbage can, and we would just kind of look at it. It's that funny. So I got out of college. I landed in Austin, and my degree was in liberal arts, nothing to do. And I took a job at a plant nursery, and that was the Natural Gardener, just because I wanted to be around. I just felt this calling, living things. And I immediately hooked into my passion, and probably very much like y'all, you just can't stop learning or observing, or, just nourished me in a way that I'd never felt. So first it was natives, well adapted, that place. I ended up running it for many years, was a general manager. I met my partner, who I've been with for 27 years there as well. Probably our first 7 to 8 years, and we spun off and did a landscape business that she ran for 24 years or something, just sold it. So it was everything. That's where I learned to talk and listen to plants. It's where I learned about soil. It's where I learned about anything you can imagine growing, and all of the insects and all the life that supports all of that ecosystem. John introduced me to plant medicine. It kind of changed the direction of my life. And so he's been a mentor and a friend. And like I said, I've been around natives, but I never had a place in Austin that had enough sun to grow a vegetable garden. And then we went and looked at this old 1940s house that had 4 acres attached in East Austin. And the land had been a rental, had been dumped on, and I mean, every poison ivy, cars. I pulled bottles, garbage, everything. I bought it. My dad came to visit and said, "You just bought a lifetime project. What are you doing?" We were like, all I saw was beauty. I was like, "What do you mean? We have all this potential, and I still can see the skyline and the UT Tower. Like this is perfect." And so we created Rain Lily Farm out of that property, and it's next to Boggy Creek, which is all concreted in. We call it East LA. And so it's a very urban setting. I had no neighbors. And at first I grew on the edge and let the watermelons grow down into the creek. And then I had a rope and I would kind of scale down. My partner was like, "Can you just try to grow on the flat space instead of, because I was like, what do you do with an acre of riprap growing down the side into a concrete ditch? I mean, we put soil down there and tried to grow little islands. I cut in, and then the city would come, put the rocks back and cover it. And I'd be standing there with my fork, like, I don't know,
How did that
who
happen?
did that. So guerrilla tree planting happened last week. I don't know. But so that place became the heart of learning how to grow on an acre. Really it took us about 3 years to get the poison ivy and the garbage out of it. I called it my man suit. I'd put on my onesie and I'd go out there because there was so much poison ivy. And we got goats and they cleared a big part of it. So then, if you have goats and you have to have chickens and we had turkeys and we had ducks and then we had, and planted, fruit trees and just kind of dug in. I grew olives. I cured my own olives. So through that process and getting that close to the food is where Farmhouse Delivery was born out of.
And so you mentioned at the very beginning about, the logistical nightmare of being able to access more local and regional foods. And so when you started the idea of Farmhouse, how did you begin finding and collecting these farmers that shared your mentality and your farming style to work together?
Combination farmers markets, so I co-founded the business with my dear friend Elizabeth Winslow, and she was an excellent chef early in her time, like had a boutique kind of grocery store in Beaumont. And she, because I grew up in Dallas, like I said, I hadn't seen any other farms. And when she was kind of talking me into this idea, we went and saw farms in Wimberley and in Bastrop and Elgin. And I realized, gosh, there's a lot of growers, micro grower, 1 to 5 to 10 acre, 15, all right here around the city. And then with Boggy and those friends as well. So really it was farmers markets, starting conversations. Because I was a grower, I could plan and say, "Hey, what do you grow really well?" "Oh, I do this the best." And I'm perfect. Okay, I can commit to this much right now each week of that if you want to put more fields towards that, and also could help to say, "Hey, you do sweet potatoes great. You don't need to do sweet potatoes. I'm going to buy all the sweet potatoes from this farmer." So in the beginning, it was sitting down with farmers and seed catalogs. It was we still do it today, conversations of where we can fill in the gaps or what are the needs are, and kind of work that closely with folks. So,
and of course that takes a lot of organization to make sure that you have a diverse array of offerings and making sure that, everybody's not bringing you tomatoes. So, you got to be organized to make it work and to be exciting for other people. And of course, now the way you have Farmhouse Delivery set up, me as a consumer, I can shop like I used to shop Whole Foods before Whole Foods lost its whole foodness. And, and so it's like you ensure that there's no seed oils and that everything is grown in a way that's responsible, and we can just shop to our heart's content without basically reading labels, which is something I really appreciate.
Wow, it's quite a compliment because it's really complicated out there, right, with all the food. But I think I've always approached the business like that. What do I want to put in my body? So we've never had seed oils, it's from the beginning. And in the beginning, it was more run like a CSA. We didn't have the kitchen until like 2015, 2016. And I realized that to some, giving someone five or selling them eight things in season is a burden. It's overwhelming and you don't know what to do with it. Instead of like, I'm like, oh, that's a gift. So I had to shift my mentality and be like, how do I teach people? And when you're doing it responsibly, it's like chicken. Everybody knows what to do with a chicken breast, but I've got to teach people what to do with the rest of the animal. So the ranchers were giving me that feedback, like, I can't sell you any more breasts till I get these thighs out of here and the drumsticks, you know? So that's why I started the meal kit program, because I thought I'm going to have to teach people how to use these. And so we would do meals and work through our inventory to help the farmer to grow alongside of us and not be, you know, excessive this area or that area. So really, I think I've been in the business of just teaching people how to also use what is in season. And you know, you all know this food tastes so good, you don't need to do too much to it. You know, it's just good when it's that fresh and coming out of the ground.
Let's dig a little bit more into the sourcing piece, because I know that that's complicated and that's something that that you're working on. You do it well, but it's still something that can be burdensome. So, you know, in this 15 years, what have you seen and what's changed with the sourcing piece for you?
Yeah, it's challenging. You know, in the beginning, I only used Texas 100% of the offering. And the pandemic, you know, in 2020, we grew 300% over a weekend.
Wow.
I had to put subscription on pause, right? My buyers were like, I just sold 2,000 dozen eggs. I'm like, hold on, you know. So, and at that time, I realized, gosh, if people could get some things that aren't grown in Texas from us, like things that we all eat each week, maybe be bananas or something like that, can we add that to the assortment so that they will stay and buy more local produce? And that was really hard for me to understand, but it really made a difference and allowed us to grow because we weren't so niche. And so it was like opening the doors. Well, then I had to find the very best producers that and labor practices and everything to like let those in. So then I learned a lot about, you know, I found some great ladies in California, Veritable Vegetable, that do a really cool thing and work from small and aggregate there on the West Coast. I found some, you know, and then all of a sudden was in the trucking business. So it's a game, you know, constantly of evolving and best practice, best choices, best availability. You know, we supplement from a place in Georgia that's been around since early 1900s because there's only one tenderloin on an animal, you know, or different cuts that I can't buy in the volume. So we'll buy the rest of it from Texas. Yeah, we're working on it constantly. And for us, it's pastured, regenerative. If it can be organically fed, our chickens, you know, never have soy. We work really closely on kind of what the feed and what they're being fed. No GMOs. Yeah, it's a big part of it. And it's a difference than most grocery stores, most meal kits. You know, you mentioned we've worked over the years with 250 different producers, but like most suppliers have one or two semis that pull up to the back of the dock, right? And they unload from 100 different that they distribute for. Where we have, it's a constant revolving door. Those people all come to us individually, but they have their own set of problems. Literally, the cow got through the fence, or you know, the truck broke down, or the freezer broke, or you know, I mean, it's everything.
Well, I really appreciate what you said about watching, knowing what the animals are eating, especially with the chickens and the pork. With the cow,
Yeah.
an animal that has four stomachs, it's
Yeah.
processing all of whatever it's eaten, even if it was a GMO or even if it was glyphosate. There's a
Yeah.
breakdown that's happening in that ruminant stomach. And these monogastrids, the chickens and the pork, it is so important that they eat healthy food. And that, for me personally, has
100.
been my biggest challenge, is to find the chicken and the pork that I know is clean, because what
Yeah.
matters. And, you know, Joanna and I talked
Yeah.
on the radio one day about they're feeding trash to pigs and
Literal
Yeah.
trash.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
understand how that works moving through the animal,
Yeah,
will look for healthy food. So I love that that's part of what y'all.
that's right. Yeah, all of our pigs are pastured, just so you know. All of our beef is grass finished. We just let in the first grain, but it's a vertically integrated dean and peeler. And they grow the grain that they feed the animals. They're slaughtered on site, like they own all parts of it. So it's something that we take really it's serious. I mean, I think that's where another place where it breaks in the integrity of the food. And you're right, they feed them garbage and really confine terrible situations. Chicken, especially, I think is really hard to find good, clean chicken.
Yeah. Well, and when you talk about the grain, these animals eating grain, Crystal and I aren't offended by grain finished beef. That's what we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's gotten a bad name because people
Mm-hmm.
want to focus on, oh, well, if it's not pastured 100%, we're not interested.
Mm-hmm.
But the flavor at the end, when you're feeding the grain, you get more of the marbling in the meat and you have better flavor. And so we're like, bring back, good grain finished beef, please.
Agreed. Well, try the Dean and Peeler. It's really good. And his wife Mariana, we carry her. It's limited supply, but a grass finished Wagyu, which is pretty amazing flavor there. With no grain. So it's really fun. I love all beef. I think the Longhorn is interesting. I'm with you, but I do want that grain to be clean.
Yes.
If it can't be, or as close to source.
Well, and one of the things that, you mentioned is once you started kind of expanding the sourcing, you're like, now I'm in the trucking business. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics of our food. And, basically when someone goes to the grocery store, the logistics, where that food has come from versus if somebody's buying from Farmhouse Delivery.
Yeah. I mean, it's really deep. I don't know I should look the statistic. It's always changing. So in order for a piece of produce to be able to travel that long, now we're getting into the right variety that can have that long of a shelf life where we're gassing it so it can get on a truck that it can make it all the way from coast to coast. So with our food, it's picked usually within 48 hours and delivered to us. And then it's delivered, we go out twice a week in the Austin area, and now Lockhart, Houston, San Antonio, we're starting to expand again. The most nutritionally dense food, even like with organics versus conventional, is how long it's been out of the ground and also how it was post-harvest treated. So the nutrients stay in, So to me, closing that gap where we can sell the freshest food, our coolers are loaded on Monday. And by Friday, I walk through every Friday, they better be pretty much empty except for some roots. So, it's very interesting when you're dealing with fresh food versus just in time inventory that most grocery stores are just stocked up and, like we're really selling and going through it. It's really, fresh. And there's so much that's even our citrus, down in the valley and avocados and mangoes now and even dragon fruit we've seen. Cherries up in the panhandle are coming down and apples. So Texas is so abundant. We get blackberries, blueberries. So shorter windows because it's so crazy here to try to grow anything. But, we do have access to some pretty amazing things. So I hope I kind of rambled on that one. But the difference is the packaging, the spraying, the amount of time it sits in refrigeration that people go then and shop versus coming out of the field and right to your home.
Which equates to the nutrient density of the food. If something's been on a truck and then shows up and you get it 20 days later, the nutrient density of that versus something that was picked in your area and is in your refrigerator within 48 to 72 hours, you have healthier food to serve your family.
That's right.
And it's going to be more delicious and you're going to be excited about cooking it. That just makes a difference. Yes. We bought tomatoes at the grocery store the other day because we had really something in mind. And even the organic grocery store tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's so disappointing. I mean, this is disappointing.
I mean,
like it's terrible. And it is.
I was saying, Yeah, a tomato in July just tastes different. You taste the sun and the water and the
Yeah.
season, you really can.
People don't understand how to work seasonally. We've just been given this
Yeah,
whole smorgasbord of every vegetable and every fruit all the time,
yeah,
and half of it's fake, but
yeah,
they don't understand what's
yeah.
in season. And so I'm really appreciating
Mhm,
that about your platform, is that here is the seasonal food.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
it's just helpful. It's easy to get
Yeah.
for us.
Well, and it's how our bodies were designed, right? Like citrus comes in the winter for a reason. Cooling cucumbers and melons are in the summer for a reason. We need them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, our bodies are responding better to whatever's in season. So that's like if it's in season, that's the healthiest option for us. And I know we all need a banana in the morning in our smoothie, but I watched a
Yeah,
video of this giant warehouse filled with all of those bananas that
yeah,
came over from Peru or wherever, and they are
yeah,
just being shoveled back, all together behind this curtain and just gassed so that they
yeah.
will now begin to ripen because they were picked so early. They're all totally green, but now it's time to go to the store. So some gas is sprayed on
Yeah,
them. And this is regular and the organic bananas.
yeah,
And so it's like,
Well,
I
and
don't
yeah.
know what this is, but it's definitely not normal.
and they're not ripening,
Yeah,
they're just softening. And that's once you pick
yeah,
that fruit, it's not ripening. The
yeah,
color may change, but what is happening to it on
yeah,
the vine or in the ground, like how it's supposed to work, it doesn't ripen. Pick a green tomato and it doesn't ripen, it turns red, but it's not going to be the
that's right.
same flavor and the
Yeah,
process that happens as it's living on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that being said, there's some hydroponics. It's interesting, but again, you don't have that taste of the
Yeah.
soil or the terroir. It looks like a tomato, acts like a tomato, but it's not really.
Yeah.
And I love it on things you don't expect. Like potatoes. I was just talking to my kitchen about. There's a great farm called Buena Tierra out in Fredonia, Texas, and they just grow 15 different varieties of potatoes, which I've seen in Maine and East Coast, but really somebody to go that deep, and they're just beautiful purple Vikings, different rows, potatoes, and I just love it when they come into season. But I saw this recipe that you boil them with a lot of salt and kind of brine them, almost like a pickled potato, that then make an aioli and dip as an appetizer, just a toothpick, and I thought, oh my gosh, if we could, that's the stuff that excites me. If the kitchen, we can do that and prepare it and be like, oh, this is a really fun, cool appetizer to try, like how do we highlight the produce and show it just in its simplicity, how good it can taste.
Yes. Well, and people need that because, like we were talking earlier, and what I was have been looking at all day today, the convenience foods that literally what
Yeah,
America eats is convenience foods, and people don't understand how to cook. They don't know how to cook anymore. So maybe by
yeah,
your kitchen cooking these delicious, healthy foods and inspiring people,
yeah,
showing them like, oh my gosh, we can actually do this. And I could buy these vegetables fresh and cook it myself, or if I don't have time, I can let you cook it for me,
yeah.
and really be inspired
That's
to do
kind of
something. So that's the vision that I'm holding for this.
cool. Yeah, that's our approach. I want it to be fun and accessible. That's always what we've been in the business about. Where we shine as farmhouses, like if our food, it's kind of clean versions of all the things that Texans love to eat. We do a King Ranch casserole. It's just pasture chicken and it's clean dairy and we roast the tomatillos and it's built from the ground up. Or we have a great Wagyu chili that's super good. Or we have Texas Iberico have bacon and products. These were these pigs this one group brought over and to Texas, and this is maybe the second group that's raised them out. But the bacon and some of the cured meats are so wonderful. I mean, it's really fun to show not just what Farmhouse Kitchen is doing, and that's kind of where we are today. Like before, I was a produce box and a meat box, and then we added the kitchen. But now I think we're really, how do we showcase and put it all through the kitchen in a way that it's prepared and convenient and how we eat. But just enough. Like we do this brisket birria taco, and you get a quartered cabbage, and we teach you how to char it and then put a crema on it. You heat up your tortillas and go. So enough that is hands on, that you're getting to experience the food and maybe getting to learn a new skill, like charring a cabbage if you hadn't done that or something like that. And you're like, wow, you have that set. Like I roast red cabbage every time and finish it with balsamic. It's like someone taught me that once, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I eat red cabbage.
Yeah.
So
you adding the prepped meal situation and the work in the kitchen, adding that other vertical helps make sure you're not having food waste. But then it's also offering us as consumers a way to have that convenience without us having a bunch of food waste and packaging waste as well. So talk a little bit about how Farmhouse Delivery does the packaged and pre-prepped meals.
We basically cook everything in big batches and then cook it down into individual kind of recipes that feed 2 to 4, depending. The packaging is either recyclable or compostable, depending what you get. We're starting to experiment with glass jars and reusable. So like we're doing our bone broths right now. I mean, my dream would be to be completely in compostable, kind of almost bento style, or you become a member and you just put your dirties in there and we clean it and send it back. That's, I think, where we'll go in the future. But it is a component. We have under 2% waste for the whole company and for the kitchen.
Amazing.
And of that 2%, half go to the animals and half goes to the kitchen. So kimchi, and we do stir-fried blends. Those are usually, the not perfect, and we'll just cut them. So every week it changes. You might get an oyster mushroom with cabbage and broccoli and whatever. It just kind of depends. But there's a great miso ginger stir-fry sauce or whatever. So, and then some of our animal producers pick it up, and we're about to do bunny bags. I decided enough people followed us with bunnies. And so I'm like, of the greens that are spent, if you want a free greens or bunny or whatever bag, you just let us know and we'll send you a little bag of, fresh Texas grown.
That's cute.
Second, but yeah, I think, for the meal kit, when everything was the hype with Blue Apron and all those, I was like, gosh, what if you could do this with Texas? If I could really take off with the meal kits and teach people and teach people about proteins, because I think people's comfort level and what they want to cook. And so really teaching how good quail tastes, or we've taught, how to cook short ribs, or I guess I'm thinking of waste in the animal as well. It's like I want to teach everybody to use all of it. We've dabbled in buying whole animals. A couple years we tried to do that internally. Now we buy subprimals. We do some fabrication in-house, and then what we need is cut. So it's always a combination. We just bought a new smoker, so we're about to do our own smoked brisket in-house, and also Texas smoked hams and turkey, which is really cool. And so nitrate-free sliced smoked turkey and smoked ham is coming in the next couple months.
Very exciting.
And I know it's one of the things I'm most proud of. It's such a funny thing to say, but I'm like, wow, that's cool. So it's kind of how we approach it.
Yes, that's very exciting, especially with snap build. Like, you can't buy a ham. You can't go to the store and buy a ham. I'm sorry, don't do it. I'm not doing it. So anyway, thank you. I literally said before Easter, we had a turkey that we got from our friends,
Dr. Ken Mix,
and had it smoked it at Chisholm Trail Barbecue. Delicious. And I'm like, now I want a ham. I want local ham. So boom, got it.
Well, cool. Well, Peaceful Pork, my dear friend Loncito Cartwright, who's been doing this, he started with lamb and now he's doing pigs, and his place is incredible, and they're on grass and mesquite. They're just eating nature, and so we're gonna start smoking his hams and slicing those up for folks. And we sell his chorizo and different breakfast sausages, but super excited.
So I had given up pork and really chicken, because I'm like, I'm not buying this stuff from the grocery store. So, unless it's been vetted, I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. So what is your process of vetting these farms and ranches? Do you go put boots on the ground? How do y'all do that?
We do. I was just at Farm Share this morning out in Garfield, walking around their farm with some of my marketing employees. We do. We vet them. Tony Briones is my buyer. He does all of our buying, or myself, or we'll go and check in, and as much as we can get out there. But especially before we onboard you, we want to see the practices, and we want to see how you're doing things, what you're feeding the animals, and then we have a whole 3-page they have to fill out, kind of answer everything to hit our guidelines. Then we do a taste internally, talk about it, and then if we decide to bring them on as a producer, we go from there.
Yeah, you do all the legwork. I appreciate that. So you can just shop with confidence. And the other thing that I really love about the shopping experience is you can sign up for the CSA style basket, but if it's something that week, I really don't like this, you can swap it out. I always want to appreciate and support our local farmers. And sometimes with the CSA, I might get 3 things that I'm like, I don't love this. And I'm one person, and it might sit in my produce bin for a little too long, and then it ends up getting fed to the compost pile. But with your experience, I can know that no matter what I choose, I'm supporting some sort of a Texas producer and getting exactly what I want. So thank you for that.
That's right. You bet. Well, that was my problem too. I think, and if you're growing a garden too, that's the other thing with getting a regular CSA. It's like, oh, I have so much of this, and then I just got more. So to be able to kind of opt in and out of what you would like to get, I think is a nice thing to have. For me, I just want more people to participate in this way of eating. I think we all have a right to buy our food, hopefully not from Jeff Bezos and, others. Like, I want people to have choice. That's why we try to make it as convenient. And I think because I've been doing it so long, I just am like, that's hard. Let's lower that barrier of entry. Oh, that's challenging. Let's fix that.
Well, and I love that there is no forced schedule. Like, you have to do it. It has to happen because life is crazy, and we travel and we do this and that, and we're busy, and things work as they do. And if I can set it up so that I get what I want when I want it, and I don't have to make an order every month or every week or whatever, the freedom in it, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm excited. I love Lockhart. And so I'm thrilled that just happened, that we were able to extend. I hope that we get feeding more people out there.
Yes. And I have farmers I want to get on your site. Yeah. So how does that work?
Our dear friend Tara, Goody Greens, he does Thai pop-ups off the square there. That little wine bar, I can't think of the name, but he worked with us for years, and now, we're excited to carry Goody Greens. We love all of this stuff.
I just had some of that last night, and it is so delicious and spicy. So good.
Yeah, she made some homemade, her and Dion made some homemade ramen, and they were adding that, and I was like, I just saw that brand. Yeah, I saw it on Farmhouse.
So good.
Yeah, that's good.
And so that's the other piece of it is so many people don't participate in a CSA out of the inconvenience, so to speak, of having to go pick up the produce, and maybe they don't have time for it or whatever. And so what I love about Farmhouse is these big blue plastic totes end up on my doorstep, and I just open them up. Things aren't crammed in. There's plenty of room for everything to breathe and not get smashed. And it's got cold packs in it. And then when you're done, when the next Farmhouse Delivery comes, those bins get picked up and other ones are replaced. And so there's not a lot of waste, but also it is grocery straight to my door. There's nothing more convenient than that.
Healthy, regeneratively grown, local groceries to your door. People, I'm telling you, this is the most exciting thing I think of. And I love going to the grocery store. I love food. I love to cook. I love shopping. Shopping for food. So I'm fine to go to the grocery store, but I have literally just been scrolling like, okay, just looking at everything that you have, and
Yeah.
there's such a wide variety. There's so many options, and I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Awesome. Well, a little sneak peek. One of the goals for this year is to get a brick and mortar in Austin. So we're going to have our first store
Wow.
experience. And the idea is, for me, when I started this, the most efficient way, we talked about food miles, farmers even having to go to 15 stops in town versus coming to one place. And then we take it out is kind of the best model. But I think there are people that want to touch and feel and look and have the experience to shop. And I think it's another touch point that will be an educational opportunity for us in person, because it's hard to do this, I think, online. I'm realizing, and I do think that we've kind of shifted. And so to have the option to have both, when you can, and you want to stop in and look and touch and talk and maybe have events and meet producers and things like that, or still, just set up and get it for your delivery,
I too enjoy going to a grocery store, less so now that I need readers and I always forget them because, like this whole truth in
Gotta
labeling.
read the label.
Yeah. Like we have to
Yeah,
read labels. And,
we
I don't have
do.
my readers. I'm like, well, crap. So at least
Yeah,
on Farmhouse, you don't have to read labels. You
yeah,
have guaranteed me that
yeah,
this is all real food
yeah,
and there's no seed oils. And so I can
yeah,
buy anything with confidence off the site. And
yeah,
I really appreciate that because we do have labeling problems within our food system.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, and sometimes they make
That's
them
the
so
other
small that
thing.
you can't read them, even if you do have your readers on.
It's true. That those really make me mad. Yeah.
Definitely true.
Yeah.
So you talked about us having cherries in Texas and all these different things. Like there's such a bounty of food in Texas that I don't even really think about. So what are some of the more interesting things that producers are growing in Texas that we might not think about?
Yeah. I mean, cherry's definitely the star. It's probably like 2 years kind of in our ecosystem, at least where we've gotten them down. I think they kept them kind of regionally. Top of Texas has sold us apples, and they do, gosh, they grow probably 10 different varieties
Wow.
of apples, which is pretty amazing. And they're real small, kind of schoolhouse, they're like the perfect kind of little apple. Gosh, edamame. You can grow edamame. You can grow your own sesame. Like I've grown sesame seeds. It's a real drought tolerant kind of plant. That's cool. Celtis. I don't know if you know that. It's kind of
I
relatively.
don't.
It's like in the brassica family. It gets a green stalk, kind of interesting vegetable. More of like a kohlrabi. That kind of out there. I saw artichokes growing today at Farm Share, carrots in lots of colors. And they do the artichokes for blooms because they turn into this really beautiful. So they sell the cuts there, which is kind of interesting. Lots of neat winter squashes, Hubbards and baby Hubbards, and kind of hard squashes that do well. Persimmons and jujubes. I don't know
I
if
don't
you
know
know
a
those weird
jujube.
fruits.
I like that name. I don't
Jujube
know
is
what it
a
is.
yeah, it's a Chinese date, is what it's called. Again, very drought tolerant. I don't particularly love the flavor. I might get in trouble for that. They're kind of like a mealy apple, um, but they do grow here and they are edible, and people sell them at the markets. But lots of different persimmons, which is pretty neat once you start learning the different types. Some that require a freeze, some that don't. You can eat them fresh off the tree. That's something I wish we'd explore is more fruit. Peaches are very hard to grow in Texas organically. I think we kind of picked the wrong, as we see in the hill,
Mm.
like Fredericksburg areas all switched over to grapes. I mean, that's for a reason, because of any soft fruit like that, the insects just go after. We should see more Mediterranean. We should have been pomegranates and figs and, of that nature. I think there's a lot of room for that. We got a grant and tried it down in Presidio in West Texas and planted like 400 pomegranates a few years ago. Pretty interesting to see what will happen there. I think we could grow pistachios. I don't know. The weather's been so erratic up and down, but New Mexico, and I think they trialed some in different parts of Texas.
Interesting.
Yeah, but lots of
Well, when
things.
you,
Barton Springs Mill is amazing in grain now.
yes,
They're really opening up that whole world too, and corn
I'm glad you
and different
said
types
that
of meat.
because as my sister knows, I have a pastry disorder. My body does
Hilarious.
not produce them on its own, and I must eat them.
We have to provide her with pastries, y'all.
So good.
So, yeah, I
So
love
you
that there's also healthy breads and pastries and goodies on Farmhouse as well.
Yes, there are. It's one of our best categories. I'm really proud of the Sanford. It's a new sourdough that we've started carrying the last 6 months, and it's Barton Springs Mill, and it's a 3-day ferment. And they do lots of different interesting focaccia and a sourdough loaf. I mean, we eat it in our home every week, and we also work with Texas French bread. A lot of their assortment, they're also using Texas milled wheat. It's pretty amazing, right? To get
Hmm.
baked goods
Yes.
like
Yeah.
made with Texas wheat. I mean,
Yeah.
that wasn't happening 5 years ago. And Mesocano is a really great tortilla that we carry as well. That they do a lard and a butter, grass-fed butter tortilla for flour, and then their corn is also really special and done well. And we have an in-house gluten-free bakery with Reddish that does a really great job too. Half my family is gluten-free, so we're always eating both. So I'm always on the hunt for good gluten-free bread.
What other things are on Farmhouse, other categories that I'm forgetting or not thinking about?
The biggest are always dairy for us
Yeah.
and eggs. We always carry really great different producers of eggs. People are obsessed with Chertel Creek eggs. They have the really bright orange, but they're hard to get. And they have a couple farm stores in Austin called Local Pastures. If y'all are in town, they're worth a check out. It's two producers, two ranchers, Bella V and Chertel, and it's a little farm store and everything in it. I mean, it's a lot of crossover with what we sell, but it's the case is filled with their meat and their products that they make. I go in there once a month. I love it. There's things that you can only get there. So yeah, I think our seafood is pretty exceptional. We work with quality seafood here. It's all wild caught. We carry 3 or 4 from the Gulf and our shrimp, but then we work with an Alaskan producer on our wild salmon that we carry as some of their locks and stuff that they do. Seasonally, we'll have crab from the coast as well if we can get it. Depends on the year. But yeah, bakery, dairy, milking is who we source our dairy from. And we're now cutting their butter in house and selling it by the brick. I'd love to find more cheesemakers. It's challenging, but we work with. There's a new Waco producer that we've just started with that's doing really well. And Full Quiver has been around. They're outside of Dallas, and they do some really nice, just Colby and cheddar that are really great. So
Yeah, it's full service. I love this.
Exactly.
And another,
yeah,
go ahead, sis. I'm sorry.
I said you're just making my point.
So, one of the problems that a lot of people have when they stock up on groceries is storing it properly so that it lasts a long time. Do you have any tips to share with us on storing our produce or our herbs? I think I struggle most with the herbs. Not sure if should I put this in water and leave it out? Do I wrap the bottom in a paper towel and put it in the crisper? Like what, how do we take some of these delicate things and make them last longer?
yeah, it's hard. We have a blog, a recipe section on the bottom of our site. If you look, and there's a storage guide on everything that we sell, produce wise. There's also quick recipes. We used to do like carrots 5 ways. If you just buy the vegetable, put it in there, which is great. It's like, here's quick ideas, 1 or 2 things or process. It depends on the herb, like basil wants to be out of the fridge. We have a hard time even getting it to you in a good spot because once it gets in the refrigeration, it turns black. Most things, like you're saying, that's what I do: wrap and put them in the crisper, or try to keep some moisture on it. Again, I think with freshly harvested food, you have a little bit of liberty there. You have a little more time before it's going bad. And sometimes the opposite happens. Like I'll work post harvest techniques are really important. Getting the temperature, the heat out of the plant after you've harvested. So farmers need to harvest first thing in the morning, usually, right? Then cooling, getting the heat out of it, and then storing it, put it in refrigeration. And so keeping that cold chain. So I work a lot with my farmers on that because when you're just starting, you can have a great crop and you're just like, and harvest in the afternoon. Really teaching is different than a market garden, or if we're trying to pass that on so that it's good for the consumer as well for 3 to 5, 7 days.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's great information. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What needs to happen, because when you have those temperature fluctuations, the plant's like, oh, what's happening?
Yes. Yeah, totally. So it's always best to harvest, first thing and either dunk it in cold and then, dry, put it away.
So the thing you have said you're most excited about are these prepared meals. And so as far as where things are going, what direction we're moving with, retail grocery and the prepared meal space, what are your insights on that as you've seen things change over the last 15 years?
I mean, sadly, I think that I've learned that people cook less and less. I cook when I'm stressed out. I cook to relax. I know that I'm not the norm. My family comes in and are like, "Are you making 3 dinners right now?" I'm like, "Yes, cooking."
It's been a rough day.
So yeah. So at first I thought, "Gosh, 5 to 7 fresh vegetables a week. People are going to kill this, and just smash it." And it was like, "Hey, it's too much." And I'm like, okay. So, I think the most I'm excited about is the 20 million I've spent in the local food economy, right? And I want to continue to do that because I want to see as much that we can be producing in Texas and getting into less than 1% of Texas grown food makes it into the Austin market.
Wow.
I mean, Austin's known for being a local.
And you said
that's the reality.
Less than 1% of.
Less than 1%.
Wow. That's shocking.
It's staggering. Yeah. And so we got to work on that. That's the thing. When people come into the space or like a competitor, I'm like, we're not competitors. The other 99, like we're fighting against that giant. Like, let's work together and figure out how we can get more food out into our community that's grown here, so if I have to cook it or prepare it or make it easier, make it in a kit or get you inspired with a simple, I'm really teasing all of that all the time.
Yeah.
Some people like meal kit, and I think we're all trying to solve for different things, so it's like, I might want a meal kit 2 nights. I want to cook my own this night. We're going to go out 2 nights and then I need a lunch and a breakfast, so I think we're just going to continue to produce in the kitchen to help, and since we're a scratch kitchen, it's like right now we have banana granola because those bananas aren't moving, or so we're working with what we always can't get right in inventory. We make mushroom umami powders and we make, dehydrate them, or I can't say no to the blueberries. So then we buy all the blueberries. We freeze just as much as we can, and sell them for smoothie kits when they're in season. So, I mean, the big dream for me I'd love to do all of that, have passive solar dehydrators on the roof and have fermenting and just preserving all of the food. I know what it takes to get it out of the ground from seed all the way to harvest. It's like we all and my team have mad respect for what's coming through the door as well. So, yeah.
When you said less than 1% of the food grown in Texas is being consumed by Austinites,
Yeah.
I was talking to a rancher yesterday who was, he's been producing these meat sticks and he was looking like, how do I get into retail? And realized I can't afford to get into retail. They rape and pillage me for my products. If Austinites are shopping at a grocery store, sure, you're going to have less than 1% of Texas food because Texas farmers can't afford to give away their products or their produce to the grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do to make sure that it's an equitable partnership with these farmers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So from the beginning, and maybe not all farmers fit into our model. That's the other thing that I've found. Like farmers figure out I can sell to 3 restaurants, I like to do 2 farmers markets, and I can handle a 50-person CSA, and that works. But we're kind of that version. But the way that we work with it internally is there might be 3 people I buy carrots from on a given week, and some need, let's call it $1.50, and some need $2.50. And so we're always balancing between and blending the price together, because I know that that person that needs 250, that's what they need. Either it's a smaller scale or it's a further distance or a whatever. So we just pretty much take the price that they can sell to us, and then we make it work internally with the margin. Or we'll make more on this, and we kind of balance that produce box and get the range that we need to get it delivered to the door, but also the farmer gets what they need. And then the other things I talked about on like the waste side of it, I try to be very specific about what we can buy or move through, and it changes. It's we've tried to do it contractually, but really it's a feel of our growth and where we're going and where they can go, and then they tell me the price that they need to make off of it. But the meat stick, it's like 3 people at least touched that meat stick to make it, right? You had to take it to slaughter, then it had to get processed, then it had to be, then it had to be picked. So it's like everyone that touches it, unfortunately, gets a piece of it. So that's why we dabble in the subprimals. It's like, my customer can't pay this and the rancher needs this, it's like, okay, what can we do to, how can we fabricate that product? Is it either slice the pork chops off the loin, so that makes sense and don't touch it, or do we cook it down and shred it and sell it, already cooked? Or so it just depends.
I always get deeply offended when I hear people trying to haggle with a farmer at a farmer's market. And so you saying, like, I pay them what they ask for, I pay them what they need. It's like, it's refreshing to hear. So thank you for supporting our farmers.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you think's important to round out the conversation and to kind of give people a good idea of what Farmhouse Delivery is all about?
No, I think we covered it. That was really fun to talk to y'all. And that you appreciate what we're doing and understand. It's complicated. It's definitely, it's a hard model. We're still working on it every day. There's a lot of giants in the space that we're kind of working against.
Yeah.
Food is not represented in the grocery store at the cost at which it is really costs to produce.
Yeah.
So we're all conditioned by some of the fast food places. When I see $3.99 whole chicken, or what, I'm just like, I don't even understand what that is or how that could be that, or what, it's. And so I have to think, though, that that's what we've all been conditioned. And if you don't start questioning and asking how and feeling the connection, so having exposure like this is really great. And, we're for it. And any questions, I'd love follow up. Anything y'all need from us, let us know.
We're learning what we're learning, and we're trying to share that as best we can with other people. And when we find people who are doing it right and who are supporting humanity and the earth and all living beings, that's very important for me to share that. So we appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Were you guys gardening this weekend? Did I hear that? Were you?
Oh,
we
yeah.
were working on the Prototown Garden. So it is a company that has acreage outside of town, and it is a place where people are building hardware prototypes for things like water desalination or affordable air conditioning or autonomous
homes.
Yeah, 3D printed clay homes, things like that. So places where they need space to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, they have an on-site chef that's preparing 2 meals a day for 30 to 50 people. We just finished planting 9 8-foot by 3-foot by 2-foot raised garden beds for them with things that were interesting to the chef, different types of eggplant or potatoes or cucumbers or things that are just a little non-traditional. So yeah, we just finished planting that. So we have a few final little steps before it's completely done, and we're just going to be maintaining it. But yeah, it was the Soil Sisters were putting in the work, that's for sure.
Heck yeah, ladies. That's cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
That sounds like an amazing project.
Very
And
excited.
it's feeding good people that are also trying to do good things for our planet. So it feels really nice.
My watering system just got delivered a little earlier too.
Oh, nice.
So we'll be doing that on Monday, setting up our water, in-ground watering.
Fantastic.
All right. So if you out there want to learn more and see if you are in a zip code that Farmhouse delivers to, you can go to farmhousedelivery.com. And if you want to follow along on social media, they are at Farmhouse Delivery. Stephanie, do you have a special discount code or anything for Soil Sisters listeners to get their party started?
Yes, let's do Soil Sisters 15, and that'll give 15% off their first order.
Let's do it. As I like to say, do it or don't, but do. Sister, do you have anything before we jump?
I just more love and appreciation for people supporting people. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.